that's account comparison. And then account simulation. You could do account simulation directly in 701 by basically just picking the same account as the source and then adding or removing groups, right? I won't run through it here, but basically it was hidden within this view. Well, now we have account simulation, its own view within 702, and the options are either to remove from group or add to group. So here I want to simulate what happens if I add to group. You pick a group, browse for a group, and I'll do the global finance group. This is a good example just to show you. Here we go. Okay, simulate. And then it's going to do the comparison. So again, you could do that in 7.0, in 701, but the only way was to compare the source and the target directly. They're the same accounts, and then from the target you add or remove group membership and then go compare. So simulation was kind of hidden, but here we brought it out, and now you can see that it's kind of a high level simulation here. So you can see which rights would now be granted if you added that account to the group. It's very clear in the UI, so that's great. So platform supported. Let's go back out to managed hosts here. And let's expand this, go to managed hosts just to clear the screen a little bit. Okay. Platform supported in 702, same platforms that are supported in 701 with the addition of NFS support. So we've added NFS on either NetApp devices or EMC. So if you have either of those devices, but they're running an NFS file system, then we've added support for NFS. Now again, if you try to add an NFS device, you need the UNX module installed in order to do that, and there's some documentation around that obviously, but with the NFS you would actually have a new task in here, which was manage NFS device. I don't have that in here currently. With NetApp, we also support in 702 clustered mode, so 7 mode or clustered mode with either NFS file system or the traditional file system that you're used to. So these platforms are new, supported in 702. Governed data. You don't see governed data over here under data governance. Well, that's odd, right? In 701, why is governed data not there? The product is data governance. Well, in 701, data governance, the governed data node was hidden. You actually had to kind of drill into a specific managed host to get that menu in the task pane. It was pretty hidden. Here, what we've done in 702 is governed data is a high-level menu option broken down by host, with all the same visibility. You can see whether or not it's published to the IT shop, who owns it, etc. But now you can get access to all your governed data directly from here. So that's great. A couple of the other things I want to show, these are very quick. And again, this isn't everything, but I wanted to show some of the things. So log files, right? For those of you familiar with DGE, here's the traditional data governance service log text file that's on the service directory. Just a text file, useful from a support perspective because it logs everything that's going on. That's great, but you know, it's a text file and not very human readable. Well, it's human readable, but that was the old version. The new version is we have this new log viewer. Here you go. And this applies to the agent logs. It applies to the server logs. We have a filterable log viewer that when you click on something, it'll give you more information down below. Very useful for support and for diagnosing issues. So again, that's located in the same directory, so you can find it. That was the agent log, but I can go back out and I can go to the server directory, and it's basically follows the same format. There's our service log right there. While it loads up, and you can click on that. And there's going to be some more information for each individual log entry that will give you information about what's going on. So the log files have changed for sure. The last thing I want to show you in the manager, if I'll scroll up here. So again, we're comparing 701 with 702. Is info system. I'll click on info system over here, and I'll click on info system over here. So the dashboards here in 701 1 were not particularly interesting, not particularly flashy, useful for a data governance administrator. Some of them were, some of them weren't. We've completely redesigned the dashboards to give more interesting information. Security index by type, that'll show you breakdown of domain users versus domain groups, etc. Published versus unpublished governed data. So what is the breakdown of my governed data? How many are published? How many aren't, etc. Right? The managed host with resource activity. Well, in this case, I have 2 enabled, managed hosts, and they both have resource activity. But if I have some that aren't, very interesting. What is the state of my current management? Out of all the servers, how many are actually managed by DGE? So there's some indication right there. So this is all some great dashboards within InfoSystem. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is the documentation. Obviously, docs are very important for figuring out, understanding the product. So one thing that's new here is the IT Shop Resource Access Guide. You'll find this in the DGE documentation. This guide covers everything about self-service, either the requesting access to resources that have already been published, or the other side of the IT shop, which is requesting access requesting that new resources get created, right? All of that is described in here as well. And then another document that's coming out in 702, which you don't see here, but I'll quickly talk about it, is a technical insight guide. And that technical insight guide will be a singular document that will describe things like configuration. It'll give you some helpful tips and tricks around the log files, entries that you're looking for, some PowerShell things, etc., etc. A very, very useful technical insight guide for understanding data flow within data governance, the ports, basically everything that if you're really deep in the weeds with data governance, you're going to need to know about. So again, those are some of the key differences between the two products. There's quite a few more, but those are kind of the highlights. So thank you for watching.